Have you ever experienced something like this? You see something, like a cat. Not Schrodinger's cat, though. Just a regular black cat. It feels as if you've lived that moment before, like a déjà vu. You call it déjà vu.
Deja vu.
It's like you've lived this moment before.
What did you just say?
Nothing, just had a little deja vu.
What is this déjà vu? What have you seen? What has happened?
What did you see? What happened?
It feels like I've experienced this moment before.
A black cat went past us, and then another that looked just like it.
What is this déjà vu? What have you seen? What has happened?
What is it?
A deja vu is usually a glitch in the matrix.
Déjà vu is a situation that almost everyone experiences at least once in their lives. 2 out of every 3 people watching this video have either experienced it or will experience it. It's not very common until around the ages of 8 to 9. It is most commonly felt in the 20s and tends to decrease as one ages. People who watch a lot of movies or those who travel frequently tend to encounter it more often. You know when you're exploring and you come to a new place or enter a new situation, and you feel like you've experienced that place or situation before. Well, it's something like that. Déjà vu is commonly defined as the sensation of having experienced the current situation before, even though it is actually recognized as new.
Deja vu is generally defined as a feeling of having experienced the current situation before, despite realizing that this is actually new.
Including the scientist who spoke just now, this phenomenon has puzzled philosophers, neurologists, and writers for a very long time. As far back as the time of Plato, this feeling was considered as evidence of past lives. The concept's namesake is another philosopher who suggested calling it déjà vu, which means already seen in French. In other words, humanity has been experiencing this sensation since time immemorial, whether it names it or not. Freud used the term repressed emotions to describe this phenomenon. Jung associates it with the collective unconscious. The human mind remains one of the crucial mysteries that science has yet to fully comprehend. In fact, during my research on this topic, do you know what I noticed? Despite the existence of hundreds of books on various subjects, I could only come across a single book written on this matter from a scientific perspective. Many series and films with the theme of déjà vu can be found, yet the number of scientific studies conducted on this topic is scarce, barely exceeding the fingers on one hand. Fiction is abundant, but data is limited. The abundance of TV series and films with the theme of déjà vu contrasts sharply with the limited number of scientific studies on the subject, barely surpassing the fingers on one hand. It's essential not to overly blame scientists in this regard, as such phenomena cannot be readily replicated in a laboratory setting. Just as you can't command someone to start hiccuping on demand, experiencing déjà vu isn't something you can induce at will. Is déjà vu a hiccup of the brain, you might wonder? No, it's not. Now, I have a question for those who have experienced déjà vu. Firstly, please describe what you felt during that moment. Additionally, did you sense anything specific that would happen at that moment, like, oh, I've lived through this before, and now this particular thing is about to occur? If you've had such experiences, know that you're not alone. In recent years, some interesting test devices have started to be used. Virtual reality experiments have been conducted. The question under investigation is this: could déjà vu be arising from the spatial similarities in memories that we cannot recall? For example, let's say you visited an aquarium in the past or saw such a shop in a movie. However, this memory remains somewhere in your brain as an unimportant, forgotten moment, just lingering there. One day, you go to the doctor. As you enter the doctor's waiting room, suddenly you experience a déjà vu moment. You think, I have lived through this moment before. Even if it's not exactly the same, there is a spatial similarity between this waiting room and that aquarium shop you saw before. When we view these two places from a bird's-eye perspective, we better notice the spatial similarity. Psychology professor Dr. Anne Cleary and her colleagues design similar environments in virtual reality and place subjects inside them. The layouts of these spaces resemble each other, but they are places that would normally have no connection. Sometimes, they are so unrelated that they leave subtle cues that could induce a déjà vu feeling, even between a bedroom and a clothing store. Subjects wearing virtual reality goggles have roamed around environments like that in the first phase of the experiment. For instance, they entered that bedroom. Later, in a stage of the second phase of the experiment, when they arrived at the clothing store, they were asked whether they experienced déjà vu or not. At that moment, a greater number of individuals felt that they had experienced this feeling. Then, they tried something new. In the second phase, instead of showing the clothing store, they presented the same bedroom to the subjects. Some of them had even forgotten that they had seen that room before. And it was observed that those who had forgotten experienced more déjà vu. So, perhaps those who experienced déjà vu indeed had a memory from the past that resembled that moment. However, they later forgot that they had lived through it. And those who say, "I've seen this before, and I think I know what will happen next," can we also test this sense of prophecy? They've done it with a virtual reality setup. This time, not only showing the locations, but also creating a walking route within those locations, recording it as a video. For instance, you entered the aquarium through the left door, turned right, advanced a bit towards the left corner, and then turned left again. They have shown the video of this movement in the initial phase. In the second phase, this time, they replicated almost the same movements in the waiting room and recorded another video. However, just before that final turn, they froze the movement. The question they sought an answer to is this: will those who witness such a moment and experience déjà vu be able to predict the direction of the next turn? Interestingly, no. They couldn't anticipate which direction they would turn. The number of those experiencing déjà vu in such a moment is increasing, but they cannot accurately predict the next step. However, they feel that they could make the prediction. Scientists have termed this phenomenon the déjà vu illusion. Such experiments demonstrate that we can investigate even the seemingly unexplainable, and once thought impossible to reproduce in a laboratory. So far, we have always approached the subject from the perspective of our brains and our memories within them. Dr. Michio Kaku, however, approaches it from a more cosmic scale. Could there be a relationship between déjà vu and multiple universes? Is it possible to transition between different universes on any scale? Some physicists currently believe that even within the room we are sitting in, there exist multiple universes. They say, we are waves. According to the wave function in quantum physics, we are oscillating waves. These waves vibrate and diverge from each other over time. Nobel laureate Steven Weinberg once provided an example related to this, resembling something like this at the time. Imagine the radio. You've turned on the radio in your living room. If you're listening to TRT1, for example, that radio is tuned to a single frequency. For Istanbul, it might be 95.6. But at that moment, in the room where you're sitting, other radio channels are also broadcasting on different frequencies, right? They all exist simultaneously. 91 point for TRT FM, 88.2 Radio 3, or 103 point for folk music channel, for instance. All these radio frequencies are vibrating inside your living room. However, our receivers, or our radio, are tuned to only one frequency at that moment. In other words, when two universes are in phase, the broadcast of the radio and our radio somehow stay consistent. You can move forward and backward. However, as time progresses, these two universes diverge from each other. They start vibrating at different frequencies. Now, they can no longer interfere with each other. Why can't we listen to TRT1 and, let's say, a folk music channel at the same time when listening to the radio? Why is it not possible for our radio to tune into all frequencies? This is because when we change the channel on the radio, it no longer vibrates in harmony with the other frequencies.
Radio is decoherent. It is no longer vibrating in unison with these other frequencies.
In quantum physics, the same principles apply. We are composed of atoms, and our atoms are vibrating. However, theoretical physicists like Dr. Michio Kaku suggest that our atoms no longer vibrate in harmony with those of other universes. He claims that we have become detached from them.
Déjà vu is probably simply a fragment of our brain eliciting memories and fragments of previous situations.
In quantum physics, there are indeed, in a sense, parallel universes that surround us. However, the problem is that we cannot enter them because we are incompatible with them. We do not vibrate in harmony with them. Our radio has now departed from those frequencies. So, if you see a cat, don't just dismiss it as a black cat. Perhaps it's truly Schrodinger's cat. Because déjà vu usually signifies a glitch in the matrix, as depicted in the movie.